Thank you everyone again for joining us on our last segment of this series, Java Chat with Film Incentive Friends. I'm Marco Cordova from Monarch Private Capital. Here again, I want to introduce you to our expert panelists, Margie Gallus from AFCI, Nicole Amlin, Deidre Owens, David Brower, and Ryan Broussard. So just wanted to give some practical tips and advice from each of their panelists. And we'll start off with Deidre.
Okay. So I guess, some rules of thumb or general advice is, as you're looking at different jurisdictions, research the rules, yourself first. I think, there's a variability between different states and jurisdictions, how, all encompassing, their websites are in terms of really explaining things, but a lot of information is usually there. So, I think it's good to have professionals to sort of talk to, but, make sure you've done all your homework first. Don't just, call, like someone on this panel and ask like the basic questions that you could have figured out yourself. Because I think the best way to go into these conversations is to do as much of your own homework as you can. You're always going to have more questions, so save the hard ones for the professionals. The film office itself, I'd say, the film offices are there to encourage filming in their states. They are really usually the best resources as well. If you're unsure if something's going to work, I always encourage being very upfront with the film office about what you're trying to do. They want to help filmmakers, but if you're thinking of something that you don't want to be totally honest about what you're doing, then it's probably a bad idea anyway. I think when make sure you hire the right people. Sometimes you have to, when you're actually going into production, you may need legal advice. You may need like third parties like Nicole to really advise you on what you need to do and what the incentive is going to be, et cetera. Make sure that you've budgeted appropriately to cover, your accounting staff. Again, I think one of the biggest things we see in independent productions that becomes a problem is not having sufficient accounting staff, whether not budgeting to pay them enough that you can attract talent, or just not budgeting for enough roles to actually get all the work done that you need to get done. And then I think as you're working with, putting together your budget, you also have to be realistic. You're probably not going to get every single thing in the state. People, some of your crew members are going to buy things online that aren't going to qualify. So make sure you're not being overly optimistic when you put a budget together that you're not going to be able to, really achieve. So those are sort of my general sort of pieces of advice.
Great. Next up, Ryan.
Gosh, can I just say ditto? No, but Deidre's right about like homework. That's always a big thing. I always stress that a lot as people doing their research, and Google's your friend, and so is the internet. So research these things, search it out. There's companies like media services, like Cast and Crew, like Nicole. Everybody, they put this information out there, and there's more information just there at your fingertips. Also, to kind of drill on what Deidre said, and what we see a lot from a payroll company perspective, is being real in the budget and having real numbers. I'll see, it seems like there's kind of in the independent world, it seems like it's kind of the flip side of the coin of what I see. I'll either see somebody that has totally under budgeted, they didn't have payroll fringes correct, or rates correct, or union rates, or things that we will happily give you to help you budget appropriately so that you know what to expect. So I don't see that in there, whether it's on purpose or, because they don't want to pay that and they think they can be a penny pincher. That will never pay off in the long run, whether you're shorting your crew, or especially, as Deidre mentioned, your accountant that's going to be working on these incentives. That is going to save so much time and time again for people like Nicole, people like David. So it's going to cost you a lot less on the back end. And then the flip side of that coin is when people over budget, which is always scary too, when you see maybe somebody that's inflating cost in an incentive-driven state, and it's very obvious, or they bid a hidden cost that you find, and you're like, this is a red flag. And like, don't do that. Like, don't try not to be that person, because as soon as there's a red flag, somebody's going to see it. You know, you're dealing with experts, you're dealing with this people on these panels. They're going to see those things you're trying to put through, and it's just not worth it. So we're kind of seeing that flip side of like people overinflating things or people not budgeting enough. And really the numbers need to be real for you to have a successful show. So that would be my tidbit on top of everything Deidre said.
Great. Marge?
Thanks, Marco. Yeah, of course, I echo what's already been said, especially about homework and research. There's such a value in knowing what you're getting into and really understanding the parameters of everything. And although incentives are in our title for this webinar series, I want to encourage people to also think a little outside of the box. Incentives aren't always what you need to get your project done. Sometimes working with a regional office or keeping your crew local and finding those types of locations that double for another territory or another region in the world can really save money in the long run. And the film office is always there to help support you in those types of endeavors and finding ways where you can cut costs without having to always be struggling so hard for incentives. Not every region in the world has incentives either, so they have very great resources to really help you find economical ways to get your production made. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Great. Nicole?
Yeah, so where my company comes in working with this group and with producers in general is some of the things that maybe aren't written on the page. And essentially, what I would say is that there's so much happening, I think, with these jurisdictions, more so than ever, where they're ever changing during. I remember a time where you could read everything, figure it all out, ask your questions to the film commissioners, they give you the answers, you put that into play, that's your plan for the production, and you could, submit to audit, get through audit, get your credit. That's not really what's happening these days in the jurisdictions, and their rules are changing during your production. You're getting your answers, you're doing what that says, and now all of a sudden, everyone is, there's a term about quarterbacking, I think, or something, where, I don't remember what it is, but essentially you're trying to figure out, well, how do I go back and do something that I didn't know was happening? I think that's the environment we're in now that I think provides the most challenge for everyone here. And is that there's just changes happening throughout. I had mentioned in the New Mexico segment that you have to check the website constantly because they're not even announcing it. They're just putting it on their website or they're changing something and you don't even know it changed. And so I think, using your experts, having your accountants are really good, useful tools, but it's also, just being aware of the environment that you're in, that things are ever changing right now and they're changing momentarily. That is what I would say is the most important thing for anyone today is, yes, hire your accountants, correct accountants, hire your experts, and then just be aware and be flexible as to things that can change.
Great. David?
I'm gonna echo what everybody has said as well, but I'll put the CPA spin on it if I can. We have to be independent to all these productions. We are independent auditors that come in and say this qualifies or it doesn't qualify. However, that being said, we're not creating any of the documents that we're auditing. We usually charge a flat fee for our services, whether you hire us on the first day or the last day. I always tell people you're better off hiring us on the first day because we're an additional resource. We can't tell you what to change, but odds are if you've only worked in this jurisdiction once or twice, we've probably have seen any issues that will come up. And if it's something we cannot do because of our independence, we have resources such as Nicole or Ryan, where you can say, hey, this is the person you need to call to get this cleaned up before we come in and do the audit. And I will say, again, doing this for a decade and a lot of projects in many jurisdictions, if you set it up the right way and you get the right people on board, the audits go a lot smoother and you get your money a lot faster. And that being said, again, check with, we get calls, I get calls all day long with people asking me questions of thinking about going to a jurisdiction and what's the latest, or they'll have something they're worried they can't qualify. Will it qualify if I go to New York? Will it qualify if I go to New Jersey? What issues have you seen in Hawaii? So we deal with this day to day and lean on the expertise of everyone on this panel, because that will get you through it so much faster and get you your money back and make the process a lot smoother.
Great. Well, I just want to thank everyone on this panel. My piece of advice, and I echo everyone's comments earlier, and aside from the film incentives, I'm hearing a lot of people are just not finding adequate crew in certain jurisdictions. So don't just be chasing incentives. You know, crew is really what drives the film. And if you don't have adequate crew, and a lot of times, you know, you might be getting very inexperienced crew just because there's just so much content out there filming. You know, the incentives won't matter. So I think make sure that you have adequate crew. We talked earlier about the production accounting team. Make sure you fully staff that and not skimp on that. And obviously check and triple check, you know, the rules and work with an expert, but make sure that you meet all the application deadlines before and after you shoot the film, because all this work can, you know, be wasted if you miss a deadline. So again, thank you everyone for participating. That was great. I will be continuing on this Java chat with Film Incentive Friends and talk one-on-one with Meet the Film Commissioner series. Since we event at Sundance, we will be talking, or I will be talking specifically with certain film commissioners that you might be interested in learning about. So stay tuned for that. And thank you everyone for joining us.
Thanks, Marco. Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.